Hello everyone, welcome back. So this video is a continuation of the module 3. In this video lecture, we'll see the keyboards and push button switch, then communication interface, onboard and external types, then we'll see the embedded firmwares, and lastly we'll see the other system components here. Now first going to the first topic, that is keyboard and push button switch. So first we'll cover the push button switch here. So this push button switch is an input device, and this device comes in two configuration, namely push to make and push to break here. In the push to make configuration, the switch is in the open state and it makes a circuit contact when it is pushed or pressed here. And a push to make switch allows electricity to flow between its two contacts here. Example like doorbell, then calculator buttons, example for push to make here. Now second configuration, that is a push to break configuration. In this, the switch is in the closed state and it breaks the circuit contact when it is pushed or pressed here. A push to break switch does the opposite of the push to make, that is, when the button is not pressed, the electricity can flow, but when it is pressed, the circuit is broken here. For example, like a fridge light switch, then alarm switches are example for the push to break here. Then the push button stays in closed state for push to make type or open for push to break type state here. Usually a push button is used for generating a pulse, as you can see in the diagram. So the left side, which is used for generating the low pulse, and at the right side, so this circuit is used for generating the high pulse here. So usually the push button, which is connected to the controller at this pin, okay. So VCC, which is a power supply to this circuit, okay. So this low pulse generator, which is used for push to break configuration, and this high pulse generator, so which is used for push to make configuration of the push button here. So usually the push button is used for generating a momentary pulse, and depending on the way in which the push button is interfaced to the controller, it can generate either high pulse or low pulse here. In embedded application, push button is generally used as reset, start switch and pulse generator here. Now coming to the next part, that is a keyboard. A keyboard is an input device and it is a high pulse generator for user interface. If the number of keys required is very limited, push button switches can be used and they can be directly interfaced to the port pins for reading here. If suppose the number of key requirements are very less or limited, so that time push button switches will be used here. Otherwise keyboard will be used as an input device here. However, there may be a situation demanding a large number of keys for user input, example like PDA devices, personal digital assistant devices with alphanumeric keypads for user data entry here. So there a keyboard is required. In such situations, it may not be possible to interface each case to a port pin due to limitation of the number of general purpose port pins available for the processor or controller in use, and moreover it is a wastage of port pins here. So to avoid this, a matrix keyboard is an optimum solution for handling large key requirements. So it greatly reduces the number of interfaces connections here, okay. So I can see this is the 4x4 keyboard matrix. For example, for interfacing 16 keys in the direct interfacing technique, 16 port pins are required, whereas in the matrix keyboard only 8 lines are required here. So the 16 lines are arranged in 4 column 4 matrix, row matrix, and the following figure illustrates the connection of keys in a matrix keyboard here. So this is a 4 into 4 keyboard matrix because 4 rows and 4 columns here. As we can see, we have 16 switches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 switches here. So which has 4 rows and 4 columns here, right? So these 4 rows and 4 columns are connected to the microcontroller. Or here in this diagram I have taken the Arduino kit. Okay, so this is 4 into 4 keyboard matrix, and this keyboard matrix which is connected to the Arduino kit. Okay, so now if you see very carefully, each row and column has a switch in between placed, so that one switch has a capability. If pressed, suppose this key is pressed, the path here will be short here. If suppose if the power supply is passed in this row, okay, if this key is pressed, okay, so this path is shorted and other paths would be remain open here. So for detecting a key press, the keyboard uses the scanning technique where each row of the matrix is pulled low and columns are red here. So after reading the status of each columns corresponding to row, the row is pulled high and the next row is pulled low and the status of the columns are red here. So this process is repeated until the scanning of all rows and columns are completed here. So when a row is low and if a key is connected to the row and is pressed, reading the column to which the key is connected will be given logic 0 here. Now coming to the next part, that is a communication interface. A communication interface is a very essential for communicating with various subsystems of the embedded system and with the external world here. For an embedded product, the communication interface can be viewed in two different perspectives. The first one is the onboard communication interface, that is a device or board level communication interface, and the second one is the external communication interface, that is a product level communication interface here. Now coming to the first communication interface, that is onboard communication interface. For embedded products, it is a combination of different types of components like the devices or chips arranged on a printed circuit board here. So the communication channel which interconnects the various components within a embedded products is referred as a device board level communication here, or it is called as a onboard communication interface here. And serial interfaces like I2C, that is I2C, then SPI, that is a serial peripheral interface, then UART, universal asynchronous receiver or transmitter, then one wire and parallel bus interface are example for onboard communication interface here. Okay, now coming to the onboard communication interface. Onboard communication interface refers to the different communication channels or buses for interconnecting the various ICs and other peripheral switches in the embedded systems here. Okay, so they're all found in a board here, printed circuit board here. First one, that is inter-integrated circuit interface, that is I2C, and second one, the serial peripheral interface bus, then UART, Universal Asynchronous Receiver Transmitter, then one wire interface, then parallel interface here. Now we'll see in detail about these onboard communication interfaces here. Coming to the first one, that is I2C interface bus. So the I2C, that is integrated circuit bus, pronounced as I2C, is a synchronous bidirectional half duplex. Half duplex, that is one directional communication at a given point of time here, and a two-wire serial interface bus here. The concept of I2C bus was developed by Philips Semiconductors in the early 1980s, and the original intention of I2C was to produce an easy way of communication or connection between a microprocessor or microcontroller system and the peripheral chips in television sets here. Okay, so the original intention of I2C was to produce a connection between the processor or microcontroller with the peripheral chips in television sets here. The I2C bus comprises of two bus lines, namely the serial clock line and serial data line here. Okay, so these are the two bus lines found in I2C. And SCL line is responsible for generating synchronization clock pulses, and SDA, that is serial data line, is responsible for transmitting the serial data across the devices here. And I2C bus is a shared bus system to which many number of I2C devices can be connected, and the devices connected to the I2C bus can act as either master device or slave device here. So here master device means it is responsible for controlling the communication by initiating or terminating a data transfer and sending the data and generating necessary synchronization clock pulses here. So this is all the responsibility of the master device, and the slave device wait for the commands from the master and responds upon the receiving the commands here. So they will wait the commands which are given by the master. So according to that commands, they will be act with the master device here. So the master and slave devices can act as either transmitter or receiver here. Regardless whether a master is acting as a transmitter or a receiver, the synchronization clock signal is generated by the master device only. So they can act either transmitter or receiver here, both master and slave here. And I2C supports multi-masters on the same bus here. So on the same bus, they may have the multi-masters here, multi-master devices. So the following figure shows bus interface diagram which illustrates the I2C support connection of master and slave devices on the I2C bus here. So this is what the master device, that is either microprocessor or microcontroller. Okay, so these are the port pins of the processor or controller, so which has two lines. One is a serial data line and the serial clock line here. Okay, and a VCC power supply is supplied to this system, and we have the two buses, that is I2C buses. One is SCL and another one is the SDA. Okay, so SCL clock line and SDA, that is a data here. So this system may have different slaves. So here we have slave 1, that is I2C devices, that is example serial EEPROM, and second slave device, that is I2C device here. Okay, so all the operations which will be controlled by the master device here. So now we'll see the sequence of operations for communicating with an I2C slave device. Like in step 1, the master device pulls the clock line, that is SCL line, so this line of bus to high here. So this will set SCL is equal to 1. So in the first step, the master device pulls the clock line SCL of bus 2 high here by setting up the SCL is equal to 1 here. And the master device pulls the SDA line to low, that is SDA line will be set to 0. So this SDA will be set to 0 here. When the SCL line is equal to 1, when this SCL line is equal to 1, this indicates the start condition of the data transfer here. Now the master wants to transfer a data to a slave device here. Now master has to find out to which slave the data has to be transferred here. So that the master device sends an address of the slave device to which it wants to communicate over the SDA line here. Okay, with this line it will send the address of the slave. Suppose consider, for example, it wants to communicate with this slave 1 I2C device, that is example serial EEPROM. So it will send the address of this slave over the SDA line here. Okay. Now the master device sends the read or write operations, like by setting up the bit level is equal to 1, it indicates read operation. If a bit value is equal to 1, it indicates what? Read here. Likewise, if bit is equal to 0, then it indicates the write operation here. Then the master device waits for the acknowledgement from the slave device. Then the slave device with the address requested by the master responds by sending an acknowledgement bit by setting bit level is equal to 1 over the SDA line here. Now the slave will send the acknowledgement to the master here. Okay. Now upon receiving the acknowledgement bit from the slave, the master device sends the 8-bit data. Now the master will send the 8-bit data over the SDA line here. And in the next step, the master waits for the acknowledgement bit from the device upon byte transfer complete for write operation and sends an acknowledgement bit to the slave for read operation here. Okay. Finally, the master device terminates the transfer by setting SDA is equal to 1 here. So now it wants to stop, then it has to set SDA is equal to what? 1 here. Okay, where the SCL clock line is also set to logical 1. SCL is equal to 1 here. So this indicating the stop condition here. So this is how the master and the slave will be communicating each other through the I2C bus here. Now coming to the second onboard communication interface, that is a serial peripheral interface. So the serial peripheral interface bus is asynchronous bidirectional full duplex 4-wire serial interface bus. The concept of SPI was introduced by Motorola here. The SPI is a single master multi-slave system. So here it is a single master multi-slave system. So here we have only one master and we have multi-slave systems here. It is possible to have a system where more than one SPI device can be a master, provided the condition only one master device is active at a given point of time. Okay. And SPI requires 4 signal lines for communication with the slave devices. It requires the first signal line, that is master out slave in, that is MOSI line. This signal line carrying the data from the master to slave device. It is also known as slave input slave data in line here. And second signal line, that is master in slave out. So this signal line carrying the data from the slave to the master device here. So it is also known as the slave output here. And next signal line, that is a serial clock. So this signal line carrying the clock signals here. Then the fourth one, that is a slave select. So this signal line for selecting the slave devices, and it is an active low signal here. And this figure shows or illustrates the connection of master and slave devices on the SPI bus here. So here we can find out only one master device, then we have the multi-slave devices. So in this example we have two slave devices, slave 1 and slave 2. So the slave 1, that is a serial double EEPROM, and the slave 2 device, that is LCD. So these all slaves will act as a subsystems to the system. Okay, so this master microprocessor controller, okay, which has the 4 lines. The first one is the MOSI line, that is master out slave in. So this line carrying the data from the master to slave here. So this line carries the data from the master to slave here. And second line, that is MISO. Okay, so master in, slave out. So this signal line carrying data from, so this signal line carrying a data from slave to master here. That's my point. Then the SCL, that is a serial clock line. So this line carrying the clock signals, and the slave select, that is SS, so which will select the slaves. So here in this case we have two slaves, so this will select the slave 1, and this SS2 will select the slave 2 here. Okay, the master device is responsible for generating the signals, clock signals. It selects the required slave device by setting up the select signal as a low here. If it wants to select the slave 1, so this will be set to 0. If the master want to select the slave 2, then it will set this as a 0 here. Okay, then this serial peripheral interface works on the principle of a shift register, and the master and slave device contains a special shift register for data to transmit or receive here. So both the master and the slave contains a special shift register which is responsible for transmitting or receiving the data here. When compared to the I2C, okay, the SPI bus is the most suitable for application requiring transfer of data in streams here, because it is a bidirectional. As in the case of I2C, it is a half duplex here. The only limitation in serial peripheral interface is it does not support an acknowledgement mechanism here, where in the case of I2C, it supports the acknowledgement mechanism. Okay, so whatever the data is sent from the master to slave, okay, so in a SPI it does not require the acknowledgement mechanism from slave to master, but in the case of I2C we have what, the acknowledgement mechanism here. Now coming to the next onboard communication interface, that is UART, that is a universal asynchronous receiver transmitter here. So this UART based data transmission is asynchronous form of serial data transmission, and UART based serial data transmission does not require a clock signal to synchronize the transmitting end and receiving end for transmission here. So it does not require the SCL line here, synchronous line between the transmitter and receiver here. Instead, it relies upon the predefined agreement between the transmitting device and receiving device here. So what is that agreement between the transmitter and receiver is the serial communication settings like baud rate, number of bits per byte, parity, number of start bits and stop bits, and flow control for both the transmitter and receiver should be set as identical here. So between the transmitter and receiver, whatever the settings is there, so those settings should be identical for transmitting and receiving here. And the start and stop of a communication is indicated through the inserting a special bits in the data stream here. While sending a byte of data, a start bit is added first and a stop bit is added at the end of the bit stream here. The least significant bit, the LSB of a data byte, follows the start bit here. And the start bit inform the receiver that a data byte is about to arrive, and the receiver device starts spooling its receiver line as per the baud rate settings here. If the baud rate is x bits per second and the time slot available for one bit is 1 by x seconds here, the receiver unit pulls the receiver line at exactly half of the time slot available for the bit here. If parity is enabled for communication, so parity mainly it checks the number of ones in a byte here or a data here. If a number of ones is odd, then the bit value is set to 1 here. If the number of ones is even, then the bit value will be set to 0 here. So if the parity is enabled for communication in UART here. The UART of a receiving device calculates the parity of the bits received and compares it with the received parity bit of for error checking here. Okay, so whatever the receiving device is received the data, it compares with the received parity bit for error checking here. The UART of receiving device discards the start, stop and parity bit from the received bit stream and converts the received serial bit data to a word here. For proper communication, the transmit line of the sending device should be connected to the receiving line here of the receiving device. The following figure shows the UART, that is the transmitting line, that is a TXT. So the TXT which is connected to the receiving end here. So here also the transmitting end is connected to the receiving end of between the two UARTs here. In addition to the serial data transmission function, the UART provides hardware handshaking signal support for controlling the signal data flow, as well as the UART chips are available for or from the different semiconductor manufacturers here, like the National Semiconductors 8250 UART chip is considered as the standard setting UART. So it was used in the original IBM PC systems here. Now coming to the next onboard communication interface, that is a one-wire interface. So this one-wire interface is an asynchronous half-duplex communication protocol developed by Maxim Dallas Semiconductor. It is also known as Dallas one-wire protocol. It makes use of only a single signal line wire called DQ line, data or one-wire input-output line, for communication, and also follows the master-slave communication model here. One of the key features of the one-wire bus is that it allows power to be sent along the signal wire as well here. The one-wire interface supports a single master and one or more slave devices on the bus here. So it supports only one single master and one or more slave devices on the bus here. Now the below figure shows the bus interface diagram, and which illustrates the connection of a master and slave device on the one wire bus here. So as you can see, so this is the master device, the microprocessor controller here, Okay, so this is the port pin. So this one wire interface in which the master and slave will be communicating each other here. So now we'll see the sequence of operation for communication with one wire slave device as like this. The first step, the master device sends a reset pulse, the reset pulse on the one wire, that is on this one wire, and the slave device present on the bus responds with the presence pulse here. So the slave devices, the slave 1 and slave 2, which are presented on this one wire, will be respond from the presence pulse here, and the master device sends the command, that is that will be the 64-bit address of the device. So this addresses the address of the slave device to which it wants to initiate a communication here. So with the 64 address, the master wants to communicate with the slave here. So the address which specify the slave in which the master wants to communicate here. The master device sends the read write command to read write into the memory or register of the slave device here, and then the master initiates a read write data from the device or to the device here, and all the communication over the one wire bus is master initiated here. Every one wire device contains a globally unique 64-bit identification number stored within it. So this unique identification number can be used for addressing individual devices present on the bus in case there are multiple slave devices are there. The identifier has three parts. It is a 8-bit family code, and the 48-bit serial number, and a 8-bit CRC computed from the first 56 bits here. Now coming to the parallel interface. The onboard parallel interface is normally used for communicating with peripheral devices here, the external devices which are connected to the system. So these devices which are memory mapped to the host of the systems here. The host processor or controller of the embedded system contains a parallel bus, and the device which supports a parallel bus can directly connect to this bus systems here. So both the host processor and controller and the peripheral devices which can be directly connect each other here. The communication through the parallel bus is controlled by the control signal interface between the device and the host here. The control signals for communication includes a read write signal and device select signals here. The device normally contains a device select line, and the device becomes active only when this line is asserted by the host processor here. So the direction of data transfer, host to device or device to host, can be controlled through the control signal lines for read and write. Only the host processor has control over read and write control signals here. So here the processor and peripherals are connected each other, and here only the host processor have control over the read and write control signals here. So as mentioned earlier, the parallel communication is a host processor initiated. If a device wants to initiate communication, it can inform the same to the processor through interrupts here. If the peripheral device wants to initiate a communication with the host processor, so then through interrupts it has to be initiated here. The width of the parallel interface is determined by the data bus. So width of the host processor, it can be 4-bit, 8-bit data, 16-bit, 32-bit or 64-bit data bus here. The bus width supported by the device should be same as that of the host processor here. A parallel data communication offers the highest speed for data transfer between the host processor and the peripheral devices here. The bus interface diagram shown in the figure illustrates the interfacing devices through the parallel interface. So this is the host processor or controller, so in which parallelly connected with the peripheral devices. Example, the ADC, the peripheral device, so which is connected parallelly with the host microprocessor here. So the connection between the host processor and peripheral devices are parallelly. So the databus is directly connected with the databus pin of the peripheral device, then read, write, which are connected each others, okay, and the address bus E0 to AY, so which identifies through the address decoder circuit here. Okay, this is what the parallel onboard communication here. And in the next video we'll see the next part of this module. Okay, thank you for watching this video.